Eu sou Bruno Assami, diretor executivo aqui da Unibis Cultural, e eu gostaria de desejar uma bela jornada para a NJ, junto com todos os palestrantes aqui representados. A Unibis Cultural ela nasceu há 4 anos atrás, a partir de um princípio de uma organização centenária de São Paulo que já trabalhava com 4 grandes agendas, que era a inclusão na área da habitação, da educação, da habitação, da educação, do trabalho e da saúde. E, para o seu centenário, ela me deu a honra de idealizar esse centro cultural, onde nós poderíamos trazer a proposição do século XXI, onde trabalhamos com grandes 5 eixos temáticos que afligem a nossa humanidade para o século XXI. Questões ambientais, questões da fluxos imigratórios e refugiados, a questão da... Desculpe, estou tentando aqui lembrar os temas. Mas os fundamentais finais, que estão diretamente ligados ao setor de mídia, nós estamos falando da questão da soberania e também da questão da robotização e da inteligência artificial. E esse foi um dos vetores que nos fez aproximar dos setores de mídia para que nós pudéssemos trazer recorrentemente essa preocupação e podemos difundir esse pensamento no século XXI ao longo de nossa programação. Então, são mais de 2.000 eventos aqui que a gente realiza, temos parceiros âncoras nesses setores, como a NJ, a ABRAD, a ANER e tantas outras organizações desse setor. E, evidentemente, que quanto mais a gente puder difundir essas proposições e esses novos pensamentos que estão construindo a nossa realidade, a gente estará sempre aliado. Então, bem-vindo à NJ e bem-vindo a vocês para essa jornada. Obrigado.
Bem, muito obrigado a todos pela presença. Muito obrigado, Bruno. A NJ agradece a todos os seus associados, as entidades aqui representadas, aos estudantes de jornalismo, enfim, todos que vieram. Antônio Ataíde, que veio de Lisboa, especialmente aqui para o nosso evento. E quero lembrar que o nosso evento é parte da comemoração dos 40 anos da NJ, né? E quero agradecer ao Google News Initiative, que patrocina esse evento, ao Unibis Cultural, que é oferecendo essa maravilhosa casa, ao jornal Prop Mark, pelo apoio para a realização desse nosso seminário, e informamos que o evento está sendo gravado e, em breve, estaremos divulgando nos nossos canais de comunicação. Então, acho que agora vamos começar o seminário propriamente dito. Chamo aqui ao palco o Marcelo Reck, presidente da NJ, que vai fazer aqui uma saudação inicial, e depois o nosso Sam Gregory, especialistas em Deep Fake News. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado, Ricardo. Aí, mais uma vez, agradecendo a participação de todos, a presença de todos, saudando especialmente também os painelistas que, daqui a pouco, estarão aqui no palco, e um abraço muito particular a todos os líderes de entidades de comunicação, meus colegas aqui presentes também, nesse dia que eu espero que seja muito relevante para a imprensa brasileira e latino-americana. Então, em nome da nossa entidade, eu gostaria de reforçar os agradecimentos ao Google Initiative, ao próprio MAC, o Unibis Cultural. Bruno, muito obrigado pela cessão deste espaço maravilhoso aqui. Gostaria de lembrar que eventos da área médica costumam tratar da cura de doenças. Mas hoje esse evento da área jornalística também vai se focar no tratamento de uma outra doença, o vírus da desinformação. Nós temos falado muito das consequências, mas nós queremos ver aqui hoje também as causas dessa doença e as formas mais eficazes de tratar a enfermidade. Nós não sabemos ainda tudo sobre este mal, mas podemos inferir que, para se espalhar no organismo social, a desinformação necessita de um vácuo informativo. Quando alguém compartilha um conteúdo falso, essa pessoa está ocupando esse vácuo com algo em que muitas outras pessoas acreditam ou querem ou desejam acreditar. Nós também temos a convicção de que o antídoto contra essa doença não é mais controle da informação, muito menos por parte de governos. todas as tentativas de criação de leis contra as chamadas fake news, né? A gente prefere usar a desinformação, mas as chamadas fake news, que foi o caso que ocorreu recentemente na Malásia, foram, na verdade, tentativas de garrotear a informação livre. Não por acaso, na época, na Malásia, investigações e denúncias contra o então primeiro-ministro malaio Najib Razak. Felizmente, com a mudança de regime na Malásia, essa tentativa de censura via legislação aparentemente bem intencionada também caiu por terra. E o ex-primeiro-ministro, como se sabe, acabou até sendo preso por corrupção. A melhor maneira de controlar a infecção da desinformação é desenvolver anticorpos nos indivíduos e na sociedade. No longo prazo, o ideal é a educação para a mídia, para que as pessoas possam distinguir facilmente o falso do verdadeiro e entender as implicações de compartilhar conteúdos sem certificado de origem. Mas, no curto prazo, a vacina é valorizar e reconhecer, sobretudo, o papel da imprensa profissional. Eu costumo dizer que os jornalistas são como médicos da informação, enquanto os veículos de comunicação são os hospitais. Há bons e maus médicos, hospitais melhores e outros nem tantos, mas todos, como ocorre no jornalismo, médicos e hospitais estão no ramo do acerto. E nós, assim como os médicos, nós não vivemos de errar. Nós temos nossas limitações de recursos e da própria subjetividade da atividade jornalística, mas nosso modelo de negócios e de vida pressupõe a precisão, a busca da verdade, a pluralidade, a disposição para contemplar os diferentes lados de uma história controversa. Esses são valores universais, fundamentos éticos básicos do jornalismo profissional. Podemos ter formações e culturas distintas, mas da Austrália à Noruega, da Argentina à Rússia, nós comungamos de valores comuns na profissão. E nenhum outro é mais relevante que o fato de, como eu mencionei, vivemos de acertar, não de errar, e jamais de desinformar deliberadamente, como vemos tanto e tão frequentemente por aí. E por buscarmos a verdade e o acerto, muitas vezes incomodamos aqueles que têm seus interesses contrariados. E não raro, esses em situação desconfortável tentam neutralizar a mensagem jornalística. Não há novidade nessa reação. Há décadas, séculos até, enfrentamos censura, agressões, intimidações. Em alguns países, na verdade, desde o surgimento da imprensa profissional, moderna. Mas há duas circunstâncias novas para a gente ponderar aqui. A primeira é que a escala da reação se tornou instantânea e agora se vale do ecossistema digital para prosperar. Assim, vemos no Brasil e em muitas partes do mundo ofensivas coordenadas a repórteres, colunistas, publishers e empresas de comunicação com a finalidade explícita de tentar desqualificar o mensageiro e deslegitimar a sua mensagem. O segundo fator novo é que, em alguns governantes autocráticos e até de democracias consolidadas, desencadeiam, eles mesmos, ataques sistemáticos à imprensa via redes sociais, com o sentido de tentar remover coberturas inconvenientes para eles. Vemos isso em toda parte, das Filipinas e Índia, a Venezuela e Turquia, da África do Sul e Rússia aos Estados Unidos, passando, é claro, agora pelo Brasil. Chamamos essa intimidação oficial de soft censorship. No fundo, uma tentativa de silenciar jornalistas e veículos de comunicação de fato independentes para que apenas a mensagem oficial seja ouvida. Agora se avizinha uma outra ameaça, que é um dos temas centrais deste seminário, a desinformação 2.0, ou o deepfake, que vai exigir de todos nós novos remédios e tratamentos inovadores para enfrentarmos o que pode ser uma epidemia devastadora de falsidades. Muito já vem sendo feito pelos jornalistas, veículos, instituições e outras organizações para o combate à desinformação. Mas é preciso agora estarmos ainda mais preparados e irmos muito além. É com esse espírito de enfrentar e vencer a mentira e defender o retrato mais fiel possível da realidade que começamos essa manhã de discussões. Um bom seminário para todos e que a verdade prevaleça. Muito obrigado.
Então, agora nós vamos ter a palestra do Sam Gregory, que é especialista em Deep Fake News, diretor da organização Witness, que vai dar essa primeira visão dessa questão da desinformação, essa última geração da desinformação, vamos dizer, que são as deepfakes.
to speak in English, I apologize. So if you'd like to put on translation. First, let me thank the ANJ and Ricardo, Marcelo and Marley for the invitation to be here. And also in advance, thank the translators, Chris and Denise. All the errors in the slides of translation are mine, not theirs. So I thank them in advance. Let me give some context to what I'm going to talk about. I'm a technologist, a journalist, and an advocate, and I work for a human rights organization, which helps people use video and technology for human rights. And our motto is, in English, see it, film it, change it. And the emphasis for us is how do you enable many more people around the world to create trustworthy information about their realities. And our work is broad in scope. I will continue explaining as we wait for the slides. So our work is very broad. It includes work in contexts like the US. We were started after an iconic incident of police violence in the US, the Rodney King incident, and it has included work in Burma with people documenting under the dictatorship, in Syria with individuals documenting war crimes, and here in Brazil, working with favela-based community media and in the Amazon to document human rights violations. And of course, we also work in the country where I live, the US, including on how you share information about violations currently. And we have been very central to the development of a field of work known as video as evidence. How do we use citizen media and make it more trustworthy, more reliable as evidence? So all this is to say, when 18 months ago, we first heard about the idea of deepfakes. This idea that you can swap the faces of people. You can make people say things they never did, or take actions they never did, or make their voice say something they never said. We looked at the rhetoric around it. So people were describing it as the infopocalypse, or the technopocalypse, the end of truth. And as an organization focused on how do we enable more people to create and share trustworthy video, we said something like this. Okay, now what? If we talk about it in these terms, that is fine as a headline, but it is not effective if we want to think about how we prepare better. So we have spent the last 18 months looking at how we prepare better for the next wave of disinformation via deepfakes. We have done that by convening expert meetings. We've convened the first expert meetings in the US and here in Brazil on this topic. We talk very closely to the platforms like Facebook and YouTube and Google. We talk to the researchers, and we have been co-chairing an international group of experts looking at how to prepare for AI in the media. And a key part of that has been to listen to the voices of journalists and fact-checkers and civic activists who are not just in the US and Europe. Too many of the solutions around disinformation originate in Washington, DC, or Brussels, or Silicon Valley, and don't take into account the realities globally. And so I want to highlight that just yesterday we released a report based on expert consultations here in Brazil about how to prepare better for deepfakes. So I want to talk about 3 areas today. And those 3 areas are the following. What is possible with these technologies? And I'm using the phrase media synthetica, or synthetica, synthetic media, to describe things that go beyond a face swap, but use the same technologies that are enabled by artificial intelligence. So first, what is possible? The second, what are the threats that we should actually worry about? And the third is, what should we do now? So moving from fear to action or preparation. And that idea of preparation, not panic, is, I think, fundamental to how we deal with deepfakes. So first, I am not going to explain in deep technical terms how deepfakes are created. There are many resources online if you want to look, but I will explain at the top line why it is that they are realistic and essentially, the top line of how they are developed. The first thing to know is that when we are looking at the creation of realistic images of someone, we are providing what is known as the training data. So every time we share a photo or a video online or publicly, we are providing an image that can be incorporated into an algorithm that can develop a realistic representation of our face. So we provide this so-called training data. This data then goes into, in most of the ways that a deepfake is developed, a type of cat and mouse game. What I mean by that is you have two algorithms competing against each other. One the cat, one the mouse. One is creating realistic forgeries. The other is trying to detect the forgeries. And then as it detects them, the forger gets better, the detector tries again, the forger gets better. So these are processes that evolve based on trying to create a forgery and then trying to detect the forgery within the algorithm. And the algorithms look something like this. And I will not explain any of them, but you should understand that there are a range of models and there is a lot of research to improve these as it happens now. And this is the result of the improvement. This is in the course of 4 years, the improvement in the ability to create a realistic face of a person who never existed. This is not someone real. This is a representation of a real person that looks like it could be my mother or my aunt. And you can see the progress in 4 years to show that ability to create a realistic face of a person that never existed. I have a question for you as you watch this video. How many police officers do you see? So I'm going to ask you actually to shout it out, so you can say however many you see, you can yell it out. How many police officers? 3. Anyone want to say less or more? 4. Okay, who says 4? Where is the 4th? Behind the other 2. Okay. Actually, the 4th police officer is in the right-hand corner. And it took 10 minutes to remove that police officer from this video. 10 minutes using a tool that is available on Adobe After Effects called Context-Aware Fill. It's a tool that enables you to remove an object within a video. So this is already available commercially. The ability to literally just pull something out of a video. Which of these is the real video? The video with the snow on the left or the video without the snow on the right? Snow or no snow? The right. Okay. That's a strong perspective. And you are right. No, you're not. The video on the left is the real video, and this was put through an algorithm to turn it into summer. So it took out the snow automatically. These are faces, hamburgers, and cats that never existed. They look realistic, but each of them was created by an algorithm. And there are now sites where you can develop this. For example, thispersondoesnotexist.com, or this Airbnb does not exist.com, or this cat does not exist.com. And they're starting to be used maliciously. This is a fake LinkedIn profile using an image of a person who never existed. And remember the progress. Faster and faster, better and better. And you can download 100,000 faces that never existed. Another thing that is increasingly possible is to manipulate someone's facial expression. So in this work out of the Samsung lab, you see the person on the left is actually manipulating an image of her own face on the right. She is transferring the face expressions from herself to a representation of herself. And what is important to know is, in this case, that representation of her was built with just 16 images. So we were able to build a representation of someone's face and manipulate what they look like they're doing with just 16 selfie images. And I'm guessing that everyone in this room has 16 selfies or 16 photos out there. Here, slightly more fun. How do we make the Mona Lisa smile less enigmatically? The ability to manipulate the appearance of someone's body. So in this case, the person in the top left is driving a representation of someone else dancing. The person on the right is not actually dancing. This is a model of a human that is dancing based on what is happening with the person on the top left. So, and these are starting to be combined. So this is an example where you see the combination of editing someone's face expressions with creating audio. So here you can edit a talking head interview. So imagine you have an interview with someone. You can change a word they say in the interview. In this case, they are implying that the stock price of Apple was different than it was. But what is important here is they are manipulating the lips and adding audio that is realistic. And they are doing it based on a text, not a complicated video edit. Now, finally, I come to deepfakes. The reason I come to deepfakes last is to emphasize that they are just one of many things that are possible, and they may not be the most dangerous. They may be the one that is most useful for parody. They may not be the one that is most dangerous to journalism. So this is an example.
I'm asking you all to join me in providing support and guidance to our children so that we can make a real difference.
So Melania Trump with the face of Vladimir Putin. This is Elon Musk, the Silicon Valley entrepreneur, as a baby. And of course, there are many others online. Here in Brazil, I look particularly to the work in parody of a man called Bruno Sartori, who does a lot of work in this space. And there are starting to emerge many satirists and humorists online using this technique. So to recap, these are the emerging possibilities of what you can do with these technologies. Alter video, like photos, create a realistic face of someone who never existed, simulate and manipulate a representation of a real person's face, body, or movement. And all of this should, of course, be viewed in a bigger ambit of other developments in AI, like micro-targeting towards specific people, and what is known as affective computing, reading people's face expression in order to respond with content to that. So at this point, you might be saying, well, show me a genuinely damaging deepfake, or my problem is with all the other fake news, not with deepfakes. Or perhaps I've got 1 million problems or 1,000 problems, and deepfakes aren't one of them. And I think that is, to some extent, true right now, that we have had hype around deepfakes. So in the US, there were many articles that said, deepfakes and the elections in 2018. There were no deepfakes. Now we have articles that say, deepfakes and the 2020 elections. Okay, but we have already seen widespread usage of deepfakes in gender-based violence towards women celebrities and ordinary people. So there is an existing problem. And there are reasons to think this will get worse. And I want to explain the reasons to take this seriously. One reason to take it seriously is the question that these technologies are getting easier to use, more accessible, and more lifelike. So the quantity of these training data images I mentioned to make a deepfake is getting less and less. Gone down from 200 to maybe 50 to 16. Some research came out this summer for doing face expression modification with one image. Everyone here has one image online, I am quite sure. Audio is getting better faster than people expected, and it is being combined with video, as in one of the examples that I shared. And this is becoming something that isn't just a single item problem, but something you could create at volume. What I mean by that is you could create 50 different versions of the same video with small changes. And it's also the barriers to entry are falling. It takes less skill to make one. It's starting to be possible on a cell phone. You can buy a deepfake online. You can get an app that makes deepfakes. And I think it's really important, and I will say this several times, to contextualize this in the context of existing problems that Marcelo talked about, of the weaponization of social media, the way it is already being used maliciously to target, attack, to share fake news, and a recognition that our cognitive reception of video is different than photos and text. We do not have the filters to spot fakeness as easily as we do with audio and text. So we would argue, and this is one key point I want to make to you, that we need to de-escalate but prepare for deepfakes, knowing these things. Some reasons to de-escalate and prepare. First, that this is not a complete change from before. We are in a world of fake news and fake news fighting. Our rhetoric around it and our escalation of discussion creates the very damage we are worried about. Every time we say, worry about deepfakes everywhere, we make people think they are surrounded by deepfakes already and that they cannot believe anything. And we have time to actually invest in getting the right responses. So how do we prioritize the threats? The first thing we should do is place this in the context that we have had a decade at least of experience with shallow fakes, things like a recontextualized video, or a lightly edited video, or a video that was staged. And we have experience to build on in how we detect those, as well as the experience of the harms they create. We need to contextualize this in the reality that for many leaders around the world, the use of "you are fake news," the attacks on media are already happening, and this will be incorporated. And we need to think of this alongside other new ways in which disinformation campaigns are happening. So I mentioned two here, the use of these kind of fire hoses of falsehood, when people pump out lots of different contradictory accounts and videos and texts to simply confuse people. It's a strategy first developed in Ukraine in 2014. And the second is something like the use of data voids, filling a search result with a false result. And this is all, of course, a Russian doll-like problem. So although I am talking about deepfakes, I want us to always place this in the bigger disinformation discussion. So let me share some of the threats that we have heard as we do threat modeling, both globally but also here in Brazil. So these were threats raised in workshops here in Brazil that included journalists and fact-checkers and favela-based media, that this will increase the existing threats towards particularly women journalists. It gives another weapon to attack people with, to attack their credibility and their safety. And we have to keep remembering that, particularly knowing how it is being used already in gender-based violence. That it will be shared in closed messaging groups like WhatsApp. So we have to prepare, particularly in the Brazil context, understanding the tools people will use and what we might call digital wildfire, the way in which images and video and audio spread well before fact-checking can take place. Other threats we have heard consistently are around how this will compromise access to justice and how increasingly it will be used at volume to overwhelm fact-checking processes, overwhelm the ways in which news organizations verify. And here it's important to think that although at the moment deepfakes feel like one-offs, The process of generating deepfakes will make it easier and easier to create lots of them and lots of variations that make it harder to check which is the real one and which are the fakes. One concern we have heard from news organizations, often we talk about the impact on national level politicians who will be deepfaked, but much of news bubbles up from the local level. And so news organizations recognize that national level politicians will have a lot of protection around them, but local level politicians don't. And of course, in all the discussions, people raise the way in which it's a deepfake will become an excuse, will give plausible deniability to the powerful on anything they say or do that is compromising. And this has been the case in at least 2 of the political cases worldwide. The case in Gabon of President Ali Bongo, and a case in Malaysia with a sex scandal, that it became a it's a deepfake, it's a not discussion, with both sides using that as an excuse. And as we look down the road, I think a lot about what Hannah Arendt said 45 years ago about this problem that as you have more and more falsehood in the public sphere, it becomes harder and harder for people to know what to believe, and it reinforces authority and authoritarian power. So let me recap just on some of the things we heard here in Brazil, just to reinforce those. So we heard these from journalists and fact checkers and civic activists, that we should be concerned about how this raises the threats, how this reduces the possibility of using video as a trustworthy source, how it will overwhelm fact-checking processes, and how it will have an impact on the confidence of the public, particularly as politicians use the "it's a deepfake" excuse. Let me move to discussing the solutions that are available, because I think it is important once we have recognized the possibilities, discussed the threats, how do we focus on solutions? I'm going to talk about 5 areas of solutions and what is possible and what we could do. The first is, can we help people identify these? The second is, how do we improve and base it in the existing skills and coordination in journalism? The third, are there tools to identify them and detect them? The fourth is, do we have the ability to authenticate real images? And if we do have that, who will be excluded by the choices we make? And fifth, of course, what should platforms like Facebook, WhatsApp, Google, YouTube do, as well as lawmakers? So first, what should we expect the public to know and do? So about a year ago, a piece of research came out that showed that deepfakes don't blink. They're rather creepy. They just look at you like this, and they never blink. The problem was that there was a lot of coverage about this. And now, a year later, people still tell me, I know how to spot a deepfake, it doesn't blink. The problem with that is that 2 weeks after that research was published, the researcher was sent a deepfake that blinks, right? Now, we have to be very careful about telling the public to look for these. They are the current Achilles heel of an algorithm and of the training data that has been entered in that algorithm. What I mean by that is that each of these will probably disappear in 6 months, a year, maybe even sooner. And so if we tell people to do things like look for the glitches on the forehead, look for the no blinking, they will remember that, and they will be fooled in 6 months' time by a deepfake. And already we know that people are not good at spotting the lip sync manipulation deepfakes, when I change someone's lips to match the audio. So this is not a good idea to just tell people, hey, you should be able to spot a deepfake. But, and I will come back to this in a moment, we should be focusing on media literacy, but we need to help people with technical signals that can reinforce questions like, where does this come from? Who created it? How was it shared to me? And I think there is a valuable role here for popular culture. On this slide here, I have a major YouTuber in the US and one of the videos of Bruno Sartori. I think there is an important role for people who use this for fun to explain it to people and help demystify it. And it was very clear from our meetings with favela-based activists when we talked about this, the importance of really grounding this discussion in who people listen to and their current understanding of fake news. We also need to ground this in that experience I described of the last decade of verification and fact-checking of content online. There is experience here. I've put some of the groups on this slide, like First Draft, like Bellingcat, like Witness. And also, there is experience of collaborating to do this well. And I want to cite the work here in Brazil of Comproba, which I know many of the news organizations here will have been part of. That is really important, particularly when news organizations don't have a lot of capacity to do deepfakes detection, that they work together around this is particularly critical. We brought together leading journalists and fact-checkers with leading researchers about 6 months ago to say, what do journalists need as tools? And there is an extensive report out on that that is available online. But the highlight, and it's something that we have been reinforcing to the tool makers and the companies, is that journalists need tools that are real-time, that work with media that is compressed, that is a partial fake, not a full fake, and they need, most importantly, to explain it to the public. They can't just say, trust us, that's a deep fake. That's not going to work. And so it's really important that we focus on getting the tools that are right for journalists. There are not good tools yet for this. I am sorry, I can't say, you just need to get this tool now. But we do need to start pushing for tools that are really relevant to our needs. And that includes pushing, and I mean pushing here on things like Facebook and WhatsApp, for tools that solve existing problems. An existing problem is the absence of the ability to do what is known as reverse video search. Reverse video search is the ability to find a video online and confirm that it existed before. So, for example, if someone shares a video saying it's Manaus this week, you can check that it's from another city from a year ago. And that is still not easily possible in YouTube or in WhatsApp. So it is a luxury to solve for deepfakes if we don't solve some of those existing problems. Third area of solutions, building additional tools that expand the area of media forensics. This is one of my favorite tools. It checks to see if a deepfake has a pulse. In this case, this is a real baby. It has a pulse. But deepfakes don't have pulses at the moment because they are AI simulations. And there is interesting work in this space that will be useful for major political figures. So here is an example. This looks at the characteristic ways that, say, a politician like Obama moves their head when they say particular words, right? So all of us have particular head movements correlated to particular words. And you can build a database of that to prove that Obama didn't say something because the face is not correlated to the mouth, is not correlated to the head in a deepfake. So this is a great solution for senators and presidents, but it's not a great solution for protecting the vast majority of people. There is also a range of solutions being developed around detection, using the same processes that generate deepfakes. So in the same way we can create a deepfake by having the two systems competing against each other, the creation system and the detection system, we can flip that round to build a system that is trying to detect forgeries and tell you that. The same AI-based competition to detect forgeries. And this is something that is likely to be best placed within the platforms. So you may have heard in the last month that Facebook and Google released data sets, so sets of examples of deepfakes to build this type of detector. And what will happen is probably those companies will build tools to detect deepfakes. And the main question, and I think it's a very important question from the point of view of journalists, and particularly journalists who are outside of the media elite, is who will those tools be available to? Will journalists be able to access that tool to get the data from Facebook, from Google, from YouTube to see what they can see about the fakery. The question of whether we can track the authenticity of images from when they were first created is another solution area that people talk about. So instead of detecting afterwards, what about just tracking the reality of any video or image from when it was first created? This is often linked to a discussion around using blockchain. And every time I speak or every time I tweet, someone sends something like this to me. It is kind of like, use blockchain. And it's such an example of trying to suggest one simple technical solution to a bigger socio-technical problem. Let me explain a little bit about why we might not want to use blockchain or any other type of silver bullet, any other type of totalizing technical solution. And I will ground my explanation in looking at one particular way that many news organizations and others are trying to track content created on smartphones. There is a group of applications called controlled capture apps that add metadata, that add a signature of the user when you take a photo or video. These are some examples of those tools. And the aspiration of many of those tools is to have them built into the infrastructure. So when you go on Facebook, you will see a tick or something that shows that an image has not been altered since when it was created. The problem with this is when you start to think, if every image is required to have that signature, that mark on it, what about people who are choosing not to use that because they worry about adding all that personal information to every video or photo they share? They worry about giving all that information to Facebook. It's not as if we really trust Facebook with our data. And they worry also that this will be taken up, and this is something Marcelo and I were talking about at dinner last night, around and used against journalists and others within fake news laws. There will start to be requirements that you have this data in order to use it and be trusted. And that will be weaponized against people who don't use it. Let me end by just mentioning the responsibilities of platforms. Platforms like Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp are central to this. They are the places where this content is shared. They are very well placed to detect deepfakes, and they are the place where many solutions will be implemented. So we need to ask first, are they listening to a broad range of people on those solutions? And it's the reason we convene these meetings in Brazil. We have meetings happening in South Africa and in Malaysia in the coming months to make sure they're not just listening to Washington, to Brussels, and Silicon Valley. Otherwise, we will repeat the same mistakes that have happened around technical responses to disinformation. We need to ask them, what are they going to tell us about deepfakes they spot? What information are they going to provide to users? What are they going to do in terms of building shared detection systems that are available to journalists? And what are they going to do about moderating this? What are they going to do when someone in power says that is a deceptive video, take it down? So that is a conversation we have to have now about what we want them to do. And it has to be a conversation, obviously in Brazil, that includes messaging apps like WhatsApp that are often excluded from the discussion in the US because we don't use WhatsApp that much. So we don't think about it. So let me finalize by just noting what we heard in the workshop in Brazil about priorities to focus on from the group of experts there. How do we focus on media literacy, particularly in groups that are already vulnerable? How do we build detection tools for existing problems before we solve for future problems? How do we build detection tools that are actually accessible and explainable? How do we focus on journalistic capacity? One area of note is most journalists have very little understanding of media forensics, and media forensics will become increasingly important in terms of this area. And then finally, what do we demand from YouTube and the other platforms in terms of showing not only deepfakes, but also the movement around disinformation? Again, we've got to recontextualize this. Often we will spot deepfakes because they're shared by groups that have shared information previously that is false, by people who have been known creators. We need that information from the platforms to respond. not just to look at the simple content item. Thank you.
Você disse que nós não devemos entrar em pânico, mas depois de tudo que você mostrou, não devemos mesmo entrar em pânico?
We should panic a little bit, but we should prepare more. I think the problem with panic is this question to do with the rhetorical impact of panic, that already many people think we are surrounded by deepfakes. They think that they can't believe anything they see already, and that is not true. Most content is still true or true enough, and most fake news is not deepfakes. So I think we should be extremely worried and probably panicking about fake news more broadly. But deepfakes within that, I think we should be approaching it in a more measured way.
A primeira vez que eu ouvi falar sobre a organização de vocês foi em 2014, 2015, com o trabalho que vocês fizeram e fazem no Complexo do Alemão, com o Papo Reto, todo o trabalho que vocês fizeram com eles. E a questão que eu tenho é como que vocês atuam ou atuaram. Eu conheço o trabalho de vocês, tanto Brasil, South Africa, pensando em como vocês atuam com mídia ativismo, com organizações de mídia independente, e como vocês atuam ou atuaram, ou como se deu essa aproximação com as mídias tradicionais, os grandes veículos de jornalismo no Brasil.
The context of Witness is that we believe that there is something tremendously powerful in the democratization of access to create video. And much of our work, as you described in Complexo de Alemão, with grupos como Coletivo Papo Reto and others, is to really help groups create more trustworthy information, document and use that in ways that explain human rights violations and civic journalism. And we work very broadly across the world on that, sharing experiences. How do you document war crimes? How do you document police violence? What has become increasingly clear over the last 10 years is there is a balancing act. You want more people to create trustworthy information, but there are many people who are also creating rumors, sharing misinformation. So increasingly we have worked on that dimension as well. How do you help people verify good information? How do you help them create trustworthy information themselves? The other part that is essential, and it drives this work, is we have spent 10 years engaging with the companies like YouTube and Facebook because they have so much control. They set the parameters for what people can do. And so you have to push them to make it easier and safer for people to share information and less likely that people will be harmed. So that is driving this work on deepfakes, is also the intention to really make sure the platforms pay attention to a broader range of people, from favela-based activists, but also mainstream media. And so on the deepfakes work, we have convened mainstream media like the BBC and CBC and New York Times, as well as here in Brazil, because they're such an important intermediary. Much of the content that citizens create and film will find its audience through the mainstream media. So you have to think of it as an ecosystem. You can't think of it as separate.
Numa entrevista à Folha de São Paulo hoje, você mencionou que, aliás, uma excelente entrevista, agradeço a sua disposição, mas você mencionou o uso disseminado da deep fake news em pornografia. Como é que ocorre isso? Quais são as consequências, enfim, dessa disseminação?
I think it's critical to understand that right now, 96% of deepfakes you find online are pornographic or non-consensual sexual images. So they include celebrities, they include ordinary people. And we're already seeing it weaponized against women journalists. One of the most notable public cases, there have been cases that are not discussed publicly, is of the Indian journalist Rana Ayub, who she is a very prominent Indian journalist who encountered altered images of herself that were sexually compromising or humiliating. And so as we look at solutions for deepfakes, we need to think on multiple angles. I think that's what one of my key things to emphasize is there are going to be harms that are around gender-based violence. There are going to be harms at a national political level. There are going to be harms that affect grassroots journalists and civic activists. And we do have to think across those and think how we're going to build solutions towards that. We also have to recognize that there is a problem right now. Often people say deepfakes aren't a problem. They are a problem if someone used them to create an image that was non-consensual of you in a sexual situation that is harming both to your dignity but potentially your safety if it is weaponized against you.
Algumas pesquisas mostram que há parcelas consideráveis, razoáveis de pessoas comuns que, mesmo sabendo que aquele conteúdo é falso, falsificado, não se importam de compartilhar uma desinformação, seja por, enfim, porque um ativismo, porque reforça a sua convicção, etc. Elas sabem que é falso e, mesmo assim, compartilham. Como se combater isso?
Yes, I think if our assumption is that people share content because they believe it's true or false, we are going down the wrong track. But if we think of it in a more nuanced way, there is a significant number of people who are still concerned about the integrity of information they share. It varies by country, but surveys show that a significant number of people don't want to deliberately share false information, don't want to be part of that, but don't necessarily have the tools or the feedback to do that. And if we apply it to the deepfakes case, it's an extreme example of that, which is because it's very hard for an individual to see the manipulation. We can't blame someone if they saw something that looked like a local politician saying something and it looks convincing, they share it on. We can't just put the blame there. What we can say is for people who do want to make good decisions on this, that obviously includes journalists who need to do fact-checking, but does include a significant part of the population, how are we making sure that they are well equipped to do that? With the soft skills, like the literacies around media literacy, of provenance and trajectory of how it came to you. But in the case of deepfakes, they will also need the technical signals. They will also need to be told, you might want to pause with this image because it has manipulation in it. You might want to know that this isn't the original, this has been changed. So I think of technical signals as complementing media literacy for people who are making those decisions in the middle ground. You are right, it is much harder when we're talking about whether people are sharing it because it reinforces their ideological affiliation, and I don't think technical signals make a difference there.
Okay. Uma questão ali.
Olá, eu sou o Pedro, estudante de jornalismo da ECA. E o Marcelo, durante a fala dele, ele falou de uma tentativa frustrada de legislação na Malásia contra a desinformação. Aí eu queria saber se, no mundo, há algum exemplo de marco regulatório que seja eficiente e como a sociedade civil deve se colocar perante o governo, como deve pedir o governo nesse sentido.
When we look at this in the broader misinformation framework, I think there is a possibility of legislation that deals well with deepfakes, and there is a possibility of legislation that misuses deepfakes and other fake news to reinforce power. So on deepfakes specifically, there is some legislation starting to be introduced. Much of it is around non-consensual images, so making sure that if you share a synthesized image of a person, that is considered the same as sharing a real image because it has the same impact, right? If I share a synthesized sexual image of someone, that can harm them as much as a real image. The second area is looking at elections and whether you need laws around elections. In the US, we just have a law around that in California. The problem I see with those laws is often they put obligations on the platforms to do it, and the platforms will over-moderate. The platforms will inevitably take down many more things in response to those laws. And they will take down deceptive videos that are actually satire or political commentary or videos that are claimed by Duterte or Erdogan or Orban or Trump or perhaps Bolsonaro, as being deceptive or non-legitimate. So the deepfake laws are starting to be introduced, but they have real potential harms. I think there are ways in which broader fake news laws are also going in the same direction. The example right now would be Singapore, where you have laws that, and Marcelo can also talk to this as someone working globally, that give government control over what content is on platforms and the ability to challenge that. I think that is deeply worrying in the Singapore context, and as a model for the globe, a terrible model in places that are less rule-bound than Singapore.
Gostaria de saber se você, Sam, tem notícias se existem núcleos ou centros, ou países, ou regiões do planeta que são centros, núcleos geradores já de deep fake news, como ocorreu no caso da eleição americana em Montenegro, aqueles meninos de Montenegro que acabaram tendo uma influência na eleição de Trump.
That's a fascinating question, yeah, the troll factories and the... Not yet, but I think the thing that is worth remembering is that we should always contextualize this in the broader disinformation, fake news landscape. And that is already being commercialized. There are companies that do fake news. As I mentioned, there are services online to get deepfakes made for you. So as soon as this is accessible enough, there will be entrepreneurs who provide services for this in fake news and disinformation. At the moment, there is a lot of generation of deepfakes in East Asia, particularly celebrity deepfakes in South Korea. But I think you are right to assume that in the future we will see the Macedonian troll factories of deepfakes. And we should be clear about, by that point, this is why we need to prepare now. How are we going to be ready to see that there is a wave of manipulated video or deepfakes coming? Who is it coming from? How are we detecting that? How are we helping the public understand that? How are journalists ready to explain that to people?
Muito obrigado, Sam.
Obrigado.